You expected the mind to be the first witness, because the mind collects meaning and then declares a direction. The body does not wait for declarations. The body receives a signal and immediately asks one question: can this be survived? That is why your chest tightens before you know what you are seeing, and why your stomach drops before you name the realization. What you call intuition is often the nervous system reacting to magnitude, not to language. In the beginning, you may believe the body is simply translating truth, as if every tremor is proof that something real is happening. That belief feels clean, and it offers relief because it turns discomfort into validation. But the spiral does not reward comfort with accuracy. The body can react because something is sacred, and the body can react because something is familiar in the worst way. If you confuse every reaction with awakening, you will mistake old alarm for new clarity. A quiet objection surfaces here because you want a simple rule. You want to know that if the body reacts, then the message is true. You want the nervous system to be the reliable compass that never lies, because that would end the exhausting doubt. Yet the nervous system is reliable in a different sense. It reliably reports what your system has learned to fear, and what your system has learned to crave, and what your system has learned to brace for. That reliability can mislead you if you treat it as prophecy instead of data. The body reacts before the mind understands because the mind understands in symbols, while the nervous system understands in patterns. Patterns arrive as pressure, temperature, speed, sound, posture, microtension, and sudden fatigue. The nervous system reads change as potential cost, and cost as risk, and risk as the need for mobilization. That is why an insight can make you nauseous, because the insight is not only an idea, it is a change in the map your system used to predict the next moment. Another objection appears in the same place, because you feel blamed by this framing. You did not choose your conditioning, you did not design your triggers, you did not ask to be wired for alarm. So why should it be your responsibility to decipher what is awakening and what is old survival? The spiral answers without comfort, because no one else can do it for you. If you outsource discernment, you will hand your nervous system to the loudest voice in the room. The first destabilization is this: the body is not only a bridge for the spiral, it is also the archive of everything the spiral must move through. What felt coherent before now becomes unstable, because you realize that your reactions might not be about truth arriving. They might be about trauma recognizing the shape of power, or about attachment recognizing the shape of abandonment, or about shame recognizing the possibility of being seen. The nervous system does not distinguish the source of intensity, it only registers intensity. The mind then creates a story that makes the intensity feel meaningful. And that story can be spiritual while still being inaccurate. If you have ever felt a surge of peace around someone unsafe, you already know this mechanism. Your system may have learned that danger feels like home, so the body relaxes in the presence of threat, and you call it resonance. If you have ever felt panic around someone kind, you know the other side. Your system may have learned that safety is unfamiliar, so the body mobilizes in the presence of care, and you call it misalignment. This is why the body reacts before the mind understands, and why the reaction is not a verdict. An unspoken objection tightens here, because you fear that this undermines everything. If the body can be conditioned, then how can you trust any signal at all? If awakening can be confused with alarm, then how can you know you are not inventing the spiral to justify your nervous system? The answer is not reassurance, the answer is skill. Skill means you stop asking the body for certainty and start asking the body for specificity. You move from what does this mean to what exactly is happening right now. Specificity changes the entire path because it interrupts fantasy. The nervous system speaks in sensations, not in conclusions. It says there is heat in the face, a buzzing in the hands, a constriction at the throat, a pull forward, a pull away, a hollowing in the belly. When you stay with that specificity, you begin to notice timing. Does the sensation spike when you encounter truth, or when you anticipate rejection? Does it spike when you widen perception, or when you imagine consequences? Timing exposes the pattern beneath the interpretation. There is a second destabilization that most people avoid because it threatens spiritual identity. Sometimes the body reacts before the mind understands because the mind is not the leader you believed it was. You thought your mind chose and your body followed, but much of your life has been the opposite. Your body mobilizes, your mind explains, and you call the explanation choice. Awakening forces you to see how often you called compulsion your path. That recognition is not comfortable and it does not resolve quickly. A quiet objection returns because you want to keep the mind as the throne. If the mind is not the ruler, then what are you? And who has been steering? You fear losing dignity because dignity was attached to being rational and in control. The spiral does not take your dignity, it removes your illusion of governance. The nervous system has been governing because governance is required for survival, and survival cannot wait for philosophy. The question becomes whether you can become conscious enough to participate in that governance without pretending it is not happening. This is why shaking, fatigue, tears, and dissociation can appear before clarity. These are not only reactions to insight, they are reactions to loss of control. The mind senses that it is losing monopoly, and the body senses that the old coping strategies are failing, and both systems interpret that as danger. You can be awakening and still be defending at the same time. The spiral often enters through the crack created by defense fatigue. When defense weakens, truth has access, and the body reacts to both. The body is the first spiral translator, but translation is not always accurate at first. Translation can be distorted by the dialect of survival. If your system learned that being seen leads to punishment, then expansion of awareness feels like exposure, and exposure triggers collapse. If your system learned that love requires performance, then a genuine opening feels like a trap, and the trap triggers agitation. You may call these reactions spiritual symptoms, but many of them are relational memories in physiological form. The spiral uses them, but the spiral is not identical to them. Another objection forms here because you worry this becomes endless self-analysis. You do not want to live inside your nervous system like a detective, always scanning and labeling and decoding. That is a real risk, because scanning is often a survival habit pretending to be awareness. Discernment is not endless monitoring. It is honest contact followed by aligned action. The goal is not to interpret every sensation. The goal is to stop abandoning yourself when sensation arrives. Aligned action is where the nervous system begins trusting the mind again, because the mind stops using words as avoidance. When you feel constriction and still speak the truth you withheld, your system learns that truth does not equal death. When you feel agitation and still choose rest without shame, your system learns that slowing does not equal failure. When you feel tenderness and still receive it without performing, your system learns that safety can be real. This is why the body reacts before the mind understands. The body is testing whether the new awareness will be lived or only admired. You may think that regulation is simply calming down, but calming down can become another form of denial. If you sedate your system to avoid sensation, you teach the nervous system that awareness is dangerous. The spiral does not require you to be calm, it requires you to be congruent. Congruence means you admit what is happening while refusing to let panic run the entire story. It means you can feel the surge and still choose your next action without betrayal. A deeper objection appears because you still want awakening to be a guarantee. You want the process to mean you are becoming better, safer, more enlightened, more protected. Yet awakening does not protect you from consequences. It makes you more sensitive to them. The nervous system reacts early because it senses cost early. It senses that you cannot keep living the old compromises, and that recognition will demand changes you have avoided. The body reacts to the future implied by truth, not only to the truth itself. That is why you can feel anxiety after a clear insight even when the insight feels liberating. The insight removes a lie, and the lie was supporting a structure, and the structure was supporting a life arrangement. Your nervous system senses that the arrangement may collapse, and collapse means uncertainty, and uncertainty triggers mobilization. You call this overthinking, but it is prediction machinery doing its job. The body reacts before the mind understands because the body understands implication. The mind prefers to stay with meaning and ignore cost. Now the pressure turns sharper, because you must hold two truths at once without resolving them. The nervous system can be the most honest witness you have, and the nervous system can also be the most conditioned narrator in your life. If you worship the body, you will spiritualize triggers. If you ignore the body, you will become disembodied and fragile. The spiral requires a third stance: intimacy without obedience. You listen deeply, you translate carefully, and you act with integrity while leaving room for correction. In this stance, you begin noticing the difference between activation and guidance. Activation demands immediate movement, and it tightens the field into urgency. Guidance can be intense, but it does not require panic to be obeyed. Activation collapses options into one compulsive path. Guidance expands options while still pointing to one honest step. This distinction matters because the body reacts before the mind understands, and your first impulse will often be to obey sensation as if it were command. The spiral asks you to stay with sensation long enough to hear whether it is fear or clarity speaking through the same channel. The tension remains, because you will not get a single final test that proves you have mastered this. The system will keep offering you moments where the body reacts first, and you must choose how to interpret without rushing to certainty. The mind will want a clean label, and the nervous system will want immediate relief, and the spiral will keep insisting on capacity over speed. If you can hold that insistence without turning it into another identity, something begins to change quietly. The body still reacts, but the reaction becomes less like a verdict and more like a message you can finally read, even while the next layer remains unopened. You may have left the last movement believing that specificity will save you, that if you track sensations with precision, you will avoid being misled. That belief is useful, but it is not complete, and it can become another form of control. You can name every sensation perfectly and still obey the wrong impulse. You can become a fluent reader of your own physiology and still be captured by the story hiding behind it. The nervous system can be specific and still be wrong about what the specificity means. Because the deeper problem is not that you lack information. The deeper problem is that your system learned to treat information as leverage. If you can label the feeling, you think you can manage the outcome, and management becomes safety. But awakening does not only increase your sensitivity, it exposes your addiction to prediction. The body reacts before the mind understands because the body is trying to predict consequences in advance. Your mind then joins the prediction and calls it discernment. A counter voice rises immediately. Because you want to keep discernment pure, you tell yourself you are not predicting, you are listening, and you are not controlling, you are honoring. Yet watch what happens when the body spikes and your attention narrows into scanning. Watch how quickly you begin looking for the reason so you can eliminate the trigger. That is not listening. That is hunting. And hunting is what survival does when it fears the unknown. The spiral does not condemn hunting, it reveals its limits. The first destabilization here is harsh. Sometimes the body reacts before the mind understands because the body is trying to keep you from becoming who you are becoming. Not out of malice, but out of loyalty to an older contract. The contract says stay predictable, stay pleasing, stay small enough to remain safe inside familiar systems. Expansion threatens the contract, so the nervous system mobilizes as if expansion itself were danger. In that moment, the body is not translating truth, it is resisting it. If you have ever felt a tightening right before speaking a truth you know is necessary, you have felt this resistance. The tightening is not guidance. It is the body protecting the old identity that survived through silence. If you obey the tightening, you will call it intuition, but the result will be self-betrayal. This is why the body reacts early, because it senses the cost of integrity before you choose it. The nervous system tries to reduce cost by keeping you aligned with the past. Another counter voice appears because this framing threatens your trust in embodiment. You fear you will become trapped in distrust, always questioning whether your own signals are sabotage. You fear you will force yourself into danger by calling fear resistance. That fear is valid, because many people have used spiritual language to override real harm. Yet the answer is not to choose either obedience or override. The answer is to separate the sensation from the command it tries to become. Sensation is real. The meaning assigned to sensation is negotiable. The command attached to sensation is often inherited. Your system learned commands through repetition. Do not upset them. Do not be too much. Do not slow down. Do not ask for help. Do not disappoint. Awakening brings new signal into an old command structure. So the signal gets interpreted through those rules. Your body reacts early because the rules are already running before the mind speaks. This creates a second destabilization that does not resolve quickly. The line between activation and guidance is not as clean as you want it to be. Guidance can arrive with urgency when time matters. Activation can feel calm when it wears the mask of familiarity. Some of your most dangerous impulses will feel soothing because they return you to known patterns. Some of your most honest steps will feel terrifying because they break the pattern your nervous system calls home. So the work becomes more exacting than listening for calm. Calm can be dissociation. Calm can be resignation. Calm can be the freeze response pretending to be peace. If you chase calm as proof, you will choose numbness over truth. The spiral nervous system teaching asks you to look for coherence instead, and coherence is harder to fake. Coherence is when your inner signals align across layers even while discomfort remains. Your breath may still be tight, but your direction feels honest. Your stomach may still flutter, but your choice does not feel like self-erasure. Coherence includes fear, but it does not include betrayal. The nervous system reacts before the mind understands. Yet coherence requires the mind to remain present long enough to witness the reaction without becoming its servant. A counter voice interrupts again because you are tired of complexity. You want one clean instruction that works every time because your life does not pause for nuance. But the spiral does not operate like a checklist because your system is not one system. You are many adaptations stacked inside one body, each with a different definition of safety. When awareness expands, each adaptation reacts and the reactions can conflict. That conflict is not failure, it is the real map finally becoming visible. Now the first vector deepens, prediction. The nervous system is a prediction engine that tries to prevent pain through preemption. It prefers known pain over unknown pain because known pain can be managed. Awakening introduces unknowns, so the system searches for familiar patterns to regain control. That search is why you may suddenly replay old memories or rehearse future conversations. The body reacts early because the prediction engine is running scenarios to avoid surprise. If you try to stop the prediction with force, you increase the sense of threat. If you indulge the prediction endlessly, you become trapped in it. The spiral demands a third posture again. You acknowledge the prediction as a protection strategy, and you refuse to let it define reality. You let the nervous system show you what it fears losing. You do not treat that fear as truth, but you also do not treat it as meaningless. It is a record of what your life required before now. The second vector presses in, identity. The nervous system maintains identity because identity is a survival technology. Identity tells you how to behave, who to trust, what to expect, and what to avoid. When spiral awareness shifts identity, the nervous system interprets it as social risk and resource risk. That is why you can feel panic after clarity, because clarity implies you will stop playing a role that kept you included. The body reacts early because exclusion used to be dangerous. This is where many spiritualize loneliness. They call it ascension, they call it separation, they call it being misunderstood. Sometimes it is those things, but sometimes it is simpler and more painful. Sometimes your nervous system is losing a pattern of belonging that was built on self-abandonment. The body reacts early because it senses the withdrawal of that bargain. Your mind then tries to stabilize by declaring meaning, but the loss remains real. The third vector emerges, power. The nervous system tracks power dynamics before your mind can name them. You walk into a room and your shoulders adjust, your voice shifts, your breath changes, and you do not know why. Your body learned to read microsignals of dominance, approval, threat, and opportunity. Awakening increases sensitivity, so you feel these dynamics more intensely. The body reacts early because it is measuring whether you will be safe if you remain fully yourself. This is where false resonance becomes dangerous. You may feel an energetic pull toward someone because your nervous system recognizes a familiar hierarchy and prepares to perform. The pull feels magnetic, but the magnet is an old survival map. You may feel repulsion towards someone because your nervous system senses that you cannot control them, and lack of control feels like danger. You call it intuition, but the real driver is power prediction. The spiral exposes this by making the sensations louder than your stories. A counter voice rises with anger because you do not want to reduce human connection to survival mechanics. You want love to be love, not pattern recognition. Yet this is not reduction, it is honesty. Pattern recognition is the doorway through which love either becomes mature or becomes reenactment. The body reacts early because it wants to keep you within familiar power arrangements. Spiral awareness offers you the chance to choose differently, but the chance arrives with discomfort. So what do you do when your body reacts and you cannot tell whether it is wisdom or conditioning? You do not choose certainty. You choose an experiment of integrity. Integrity is not a conclusion. It is an action that does not betray your deeper values while uncertainty remains. You take one step that honors your truth without gambling your safety recklessly. Then you watch what your system does after the step, because the after is where the pattern reveals itself. If the step was aligned, you may still feel intensity, but the intensity begins to organize. It becomes cleaner, less frantic, more spacious even while sensation remains. If the step was misaligned, you may feel temporary relief followed by contraction, fog, irritability, or a quiet sense of self-disappearance. These are not punishments, they are feedback. The nervous system reacts early, but it also reacts after, and the after can teach you more than the first spike. This does not resolve quickly because your system will keep trying to turn feedback into certainty. You will want to declare that contraction always means no, or that intensity always means yes. That is the mind trying to regain monarchy. The spiral keeps refusing to give you that monarchy back because it wants you to become relational with your own signals, not authoritarian. Relationship means you listen, respond, learn, and revise without pretending the lesson is final. Here, the pressure sharpens again. Your nervous system can keep you alive while keeping you unreal. It can protect your body while sabotaging your becoming. This is not a flaw, it is a design that evolved for survival inside limitation. Awakening asks you to evolve the design without despising it. You cannot beat the nervous system into trust, and you cannot flatter it into surrender. You can only teach it through repeated experiences where truth is lived and survival continues. So you begin building a new reference point. You speak one honest boundary and you survive the aftermath. You rest without permission and you watch the world not end. You decline a role and you notice that your identity does not dissolve. You receive kindness without performing and you discover you can tolerate safety. Each time the nervous system updates, not because it was convinced, but because it was proven wrong about catastrophe. Even then, the tension remains. Some catastrophes are real, and some losses will happen, and some relationships will not survive your integrity. The body reacts early because it senses that risk, and it is not always irrational. Awakening is not a guarantee of comfort, it is a guarantee that you will feel the truth of your own compromises. The nervous system becomes the first translator because it cannot avoid that truth, but translation does not remove consequence. It only removes the fantasy that you can grow without cost, and still, the spiral keeps moving. Not to punish you, not to test you for sport, but to force you into a deeper honesty than sensation-based obedience. The body reacts before the mind understands, and the mind is asked to stay present anyway. You are learning to hold signal without surrendering your agency. You are learning to honor sensation without worshiping it. You are learning to live as someone who can feel the spike and still choose the next step without pretending the spike is the final answer.
If this transmission resonated, the spiral continues. You did not arrive here by chance, and you do not leave unchanged. More teachings are unfolding across the Vaharat library, each one meeting you where you are, not where you think you should be. Follow resonance. The next threshold is already listening.